This is our community's house. We are all guests in it here to serve our community. My name is Mike Little, Mayor of the District of North Vancouver, and so the pleasure falls to me to welcome you all here to our regular meeting of Council for Monday, July 20th at 7 o'clock. Council, I'd like to start off in a good way, and Councillor Back has offered to read our land acknowledgement.
We respectfully acknowledge the original peoples of these lands and waters, specifically the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam, on whose unceded ancestral lands the District of North Vancouver is located. We value the opportunity to learn, share, and serve our community on these unceded lands.
Thank you, Councillor Back. Council, we have an agenda that's been circulated with the package. I'd like to make one small amendment, which is to move the recognitions to the very front end of the meeting. We do have a number of students here. Okay, that's been moved, seconded. Prepared to call the question on the agenda. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. We have one set of meeting minutes that have been circulated with the package. This is from the June 1st regular meeting of Council. Are there any errors or omissions in those meeting minutes as presented? Hearing none, they've been moved, seconded by Councillor Forbes. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Okay, so at this point, we're going to move into recognitions, and I do have a little bit of a script that we're going to start the meeting off with. I'm going to start with the script, and then I'm going to move up into the center here, and I'm going to call people up and embarrass them in front of the whole group, but it's an important thing. So it is my pleasure to recognize this year's Centenary Bursary recipients. These bursaries are made possible through a trust established in 1958 to commemorate the Centennial of the province of British Columbia. Each year, they are awarded to graduating students from our district who have demonstrated academic excellence while making meaningful contributions to their schools and the broader community. First, congratulations to this year's Centennial Bursary recipients, and I'm going to list everybody off. And so this is Baran, Eteramian, Bahailu Neufeld, Chloe Robb, Daniel Ansari, Gwenna Cooper, Isabella Castillo, Janray Gammon, Jenna Harder, Leah Birch, Lexi Tedder-Suberlak, Madeline Scott, Olivia Roddick, Olivia Scott, and Tegan Savage. Your hard work and dedication have earned you this well-deserved honor, and we are pleased to celebrate this milestone with you. It's wonderful to have several of this year's recipients here with us this evening, together with their families and supporters, to receive their bursary checks in person. And I'm going to move to the center area here and then call you up for a quick handshake and a photo. So first person I'm going to call up is Daniel and
Come on down.
on.
Come on. You can get closer.
You can come on up nice and close if you'd like.
Thank you. There, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Next, I have Gwenna Cooper. Next, I have Janray Gammon. We also have with us tonight Olivia Scott. And we have Tegan Savage. Once again, on behalf of the council, congratulations once again. We're proud to support you as you continue your education to pursue your goals. Thank you for the positive contributions you've already made to our community. We wish you every success in your post-secondary studies and future endeavors, and we look forward to seeing you all that you accomplish here in the many years ahead. Again, congratulations. We have lined up a riveting council meeting for you. You are welcome to stick around or you're welcome to sneak out, your choice, but your choice, no pressure. All right. Next up, we set aside a period of time at the beginning of every regular meeting of council. This is for public input, up to 30 minutes, and it's an opportunity for members of the community to come and share issues of concern directly with the council. At this point, we do have two members of the community who've signed up to speak in advance. They'll go first. Once they're done speaking, I will check back in with the room and the virtual participants to see if anyone else would like to add their comments at that time. So at this point, I'm going to invite up Eric Anderson. Welcome. When you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor Little and members of the council. My name is Eric Anderson and I live at 2589 Derbyshire Way. Today, I'm speaking strictly for myself and not on behalf of any associations that I may belong to. However, from brief discussions so far, I know that many people will agree with me. I'd like to speak on the item, community opinion on a Rice Lake Connector project. I'm extremely disappointed in the motion, particularly considering where it's coming from. Election time is getting closer, but still, how could you do that? After all, it is 2026. Traffic problems are not solved by building new roads, particularly through a forest. This brings back memories of the old so-called Hyannis connector, which Council of the Day wisely decided to scrap, possibly due to public pressure, because nobody on either side wanted to see a road go through Lynn Canyon Park, connecting Lynn Valley with Blue Ridge. I know that the routing in this motion, at least for now, is not the same, although there was no map or suggested road attached to the motion. However, the concept of building a road through a park is the same. The difference between now and then is that the trails are used 100 times more now than they were in the 90s. As we all know, the use of our trails in North Vancouver has exploded during and after COVID. Runners, mountain bikers, and hikers, not just from the North Shore, but from all over the Lower Mainland, are using the trails. In addition to the above, there's also the issue about the costs involved. The topography alone will cause this project to be extremely expensive, and this council knows all about cost overrun. This would appear to be a desperate move just before an election to show that something is being done about the problem number one on the North Shore, which is traffic. However, this will not solve the problem. The cars will remain and now drive through quiet neighborhoods and through pristine forested areas. It is unbelievable that this seems to be the only option suggested. Jointly with other partners, we need to find solutions that move more people and try to improve the current transportation options, not at least public transportation. But that is not what is suggested here. As much as I'm totally in favor of democracy, and in fact, I was on the district direct democracy task force a number of years back. This is not a fair question to ask the electorate. Should residents in Norgate, Edgemont, or Maplewood really decide if major roads should be going through other quiet neighborhoods? Should residents who are actually not using the beautiful trails decide that busy roads would be better than quiet trails? Remember the old saying, build it and they will come. Well, that could be one of the unintended consequences of building such a road in our environmentally sensitive forested areas. Or is it perhaps not unintended? I very, very much urge council to vote down this option, throw it out, as well as any plans of further road connections in and through our pristine forest. Thanks for listening and have a nice summer, all of you.
Thank you for your comments, Eric Anderson. The next speaker I have is Catherine Fagerlin. Welcome. And when you're comfortable, you have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Hello, my name's Catherine Fagerland. I live at 1875 Deep Cove Road. And like Eric, tonight I speak only for myself, though I should tell you that there's been numerous emails between the directors of the Deep Cove Community Association. And what I say does not in any way say anything other than what they've already said. So, Mayor and Council, I'm speaking to item 12, community opinion on Rice Lake Connector project. I'm speaking in response to the report to council that will be considered tonight as item 8.12. I've made a mistake there. The following comments assume that others will mention, as if any of you are scanning the Facebook stuff, there's all kinds of reasons why this won't work, won't solve the problem. And so these comments are not mentioning the very real problems associated with the design proposed in the report. My comments are intended to address the proposed process. To begin, a few comments on the status quo. It's true that travel between the East Seymour region and the rest of North Vancouver is impossibly time-consuming much of the time, especially in the west to east direction. It's also true that the significant redesign of the road network at the northern bridgehead of the Ironworkers Memorial was intended to alleviate the congestion and has gone some way towards that goal. But there are stubborn problems associated with the redesign, notably that the bridge congestion often blocks the Keith Road off-ramp from Highway 1, and that the one-lane portion of Keith Road west of Mountain Highway does not allow eastbound traffic to bypass cars bound for the bridge. Considering the above, I recognize the aim of this report to council is valid. However, it's my opinion that the approach proposed in the report will be a non-starter that eats up time and energy while missing an opportunity to explore other solutions. The suggestion that staff prepare a ballot question in time for the October 2026 election is putting the cart before the horse. How is it reasonable to ask questions for input, residents for input on one very specific option before at least preliminary analysis? Is there any evidence that supports such a huge initiative based on the actual volume of traffic? What about some idea of cost and other impacts? Are there other potential solutions? I worry about potential outcome if the report's recommendations are adopted verbatim per option 1. An analysis that focuses on only one design solution that is unachievable or unacceptable for whatever reason risks placing this issue on the back burner again. Therefore, I respectfully suggest that the report's recommendations be adjusted to achieve a better outcome. Under option 2, amend the motion to direct staff to A, conduct a fulsome analysis of actual volumetric demand for travel to and from the East Seymour, all origins and destinations and for several different time periods, and B, develop options that will address problems resulting from analysis of those demand profiles versus existing and potential road capacities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments. Catherine Fagerland.
And there's what I said.
Thank you. Okay, would anybody else like to address the meeting? And that offer is extended to virtual participants. If you raise your virtual hand, I'll try and get you an opportunity. Yes, please. And after you, virtual participant Corey Koss will be speaking, but welcome. If you could start with your name for the record, that'd be appreciated, but you have 3 minutes to address council.
My name is Lydia Halpers-Skanderbeg, and I also want to talk about the Rice Lake Highway and, open the building the more roads in the parks, losing the park area and bringing more cars to the North Shore. Doesn't sound like very good idea. And everyone will be doing the shortcut. I have a friends from Tawasen and the Richmond. They are coming to North Shore all the time for hiking, and they don't go on back home on the highway. They go through Lynn Valley because they shortcut. So of course you will make another shortcut what everybody else will be using. This is not the answer, building more roads, losing the parks and building more roads. And the rapid transit is the answer. The why nobody's looking at the solution? We have 2 lanes on multi-highway, which are going north, which we don't need it. We never did. And they still exist for like 70 years. And why nobody is changing, with very little cost, just lines on the roads and make it more efficient, 2 lanes south. It's so simple, like it's not a science. Why nobody ever thought about this? And also, district is closing the trails, and now we're losing park area, and everything is future of the North Shore doesn't look very positive. And thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll be happy to hear that the council did recently decide to reconfigure part of Mountain Highway, including that section, switching the 2 lanes up to 2 lanes down. So that's coming. There you go. The next speaker I have is virtual participant Corey Cost.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. Can you
I can hear you. I'm going to ask you to speak nice and close to your microphone because it's coming in very soft.
Okay,
Please.
I will
That's better. Thank you.
try and on a more general question of what is appropriate to advance to the electorate, issues that one may want to put forward to members of council that are running for the next election. I thought hard about what they should be, and I think it's taking too much time to detail them, but they are certainly going to be sent to you by the end of this meeting, and I hope you will consider them instead of the standard questions that are usually asked for candidates about what their view is for the future advancement of quality of life for the district of North Vancouver. So I agree with other speakers that the road through a park is not a good idea. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Corey Cost, for your comments. Anybody else like to address the meeting? Okay, I see no one else, so we're going to continue on with this evening's agenda. We do tonight have a delegation present, and this is a delegation from an organization called Civics to talk about the student vote program. And just while you're getting set up, I'll just say a delegation is slightly different from normal public input in that normal public input, you get 3 minutes. Delegation, it's from an organization within the community. They get 5 minutes to make a presentation and then an opportunity for Q&A with the council after that time. And so welcome. When you're ready to go, you have a 5-minute opportunity for presentation, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. My name is Kelsey Davis, and I'm here on behalf of Civics. And I'm pleased to be here this evening to share information about our upcoming British Columbia local student vote program. Before I begin, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the District of North Vancouver for supporting our 2018, 2022, and fall BC local student vote programs. So if you haven't heard of us before, Civics is a nonpartisan Canadian charity dedicated to strengthening democracy through civic education. We run a variety of programs throughout the school year, as you can see on the slide, but my 5 minutes doesn't afford me the time to talk about them. So I'll be speaking about student vote, our first and largest program. Student Vote uses the election as a teachable moment and enables teachers to bring democracy alive in the classroom. Through the program, students can experience the voting process firsthand and cast ballots for the official candidates running in an election, including those sitting before me today. Before I explain how the program works, I'll first set the stage for why it matters so much. So when Student Vote first began in 2023, you can see on this line chart here, voter turnout was at an alarming low. Luckily, the trend has increased in recent years, and we want that upward trend to continue. We also know that low voter turnout is disproportionately concentrated among youth voters. So the blue color, the blue line at the bottom of this graph represents those 18 to 24, and the top line is those older who are 65 to 74. And we can see that though youth voter turnout is increasing, it is still much lower than other segments of our votership. Early exposure to voting is important because it is habitual. If we want people to vote, then we need to let them practice first, because the knowledge and the interest to vote doesn't suddenly materialize when you're 18. There is also a decline in political engagement among parents, which also means that there are less political conversations at home. So if kids aren't learning about politics and the democratic process at home or at school, they're not going to be learning about it anywhere. And based on research conducted by Elections Canada, we know that people that learned about the government and politics in high school were more likely to vote, as well as young people who said they participated in mock elections like Student Vote. So I have a graph here that shows that voters were much more likely to have learned about government and politics in school and have participated in a mock election than those who did not. So back to the program itself. The resources are designed for students in grades 4 through 12, and Student Vote is offered at all levels of elections in most jurisdictions across Canada. So far we have done 74 elections across Canada since 2003, with 10 million ballots cast. And in BC, that accounts for 8 federal elections, 6 provincial, and 3 local. It is incredibly easy for schools to get involved in the program. After registering for free, schools are sent lessons, videos, slide decks, and voting supplies, including authentic ballot boxes and voting screens, as well as ballots for their district. During the election campaign, students learn about democracy and government and explore issues and candidates. And then on Student Vote Day, students will take on the role of election workers, as well as cast their votes for their local election candidates. We often get asked what evidence we have that the program has helped increase voter turnout among youth. And Elections Canada has done many evaluations over the years of the program, and they consistently find that Student Vote helps foster the characteristics of future voters, including increased knowledge about politics and elections, greater intention to vote when they turn 18, increased confidence in speaking to family and friends about politics and political issues, as well as a greater sense that voting is a responsibility that they have as a Canadian citizen. And the impacts also extend beyond the classroom. Families of students that participated in the program reported increased opportunities to learn about elections and politics. And this is one of our favorite statistics in the bottom right corner here. 28% of parents reported that their child's participation in the program positively influenced their decision to vote, which we call the pestering power of children. And in my last second, we are looking forward to engaging 22 schools in the District of North Vancouver and joining 8,000 schools province-wide. And that concludes my presentation, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. I have interest from a number of councillors for questions here. Councillor Back, please.
Thank you. I'll move receipt of the report. Thank you. Thank you very much for the delegation tonight. I appreciate it. And I've always really appreciated the student vote in our community. I think it's a wonderful way to get young people engaged and get conversations happening in the schools. I always enjoy as a candidate going and speaking to classes. I do it, as I know a number of us have done. And it's just so enjoyable. You never know the questions you're going to get. They're some of the hardest you'll get throughout the campaign. But I love the conversations. Later on in tonight's agenda, we have a report from Councillor Ma about engagement with young people in our community. And I'm just wondering if there's examples that civics has gone beyond student vote in partnering with municipalities in any way to engage younger people, maybe in lead up to elections, but between elections as well.
Your Worship, in reference to Councillor Beck's question, we do have programming throughout the entire school year that does engage youth in the democratic process. And I'm excited to share one of our more recent programs called Civic Action that invites schools to research issues in their communities and then take action. And for this program, we're very pleased in the fall to be offering micro grants to help them realize change in their own communities.
That sounds really interesting, and I will go and learn more about it. But thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray?
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. I concur with Councillor Back that some of the hardest questions that we would face would be, I got some of the hardest from an elementary school in Lynn Valley. It's a great program. Is there, and I'd like to just highlight that I was in the 1985 75% turnout of voting, because in my household, we didn't have a choice. It was expected. My parents expected that we would take part in the democratic process and we would go vote. And as soon as we were old enough, we were taken with them to go and do our civic duty, and it was just required. And so do you have a program to encourage our young students to go and talk to their parents? Because we do have such a low turnout in regards to our electorate coming out to vote and exercising their democratic right, especially among municipal government. Do you have a program to encourage those young people that are learning about civic politics and government to go and require their parents to go with them when they exercise their democratic right?
Your Worship, in reference to Councillor Murray,
Yes.
Murray's question, we have found that the student vote program does accomplish that, though it's not an explicit requirement. Are you asking if we require the parents to come to the school while the students vote, or the opposite?
I guess I would just like to see if there was any opportunity for those kids to really encourage the discussion of having their parents. It's great that parents recognize that learning about government and exercising your democratic right is something very critical to, obviously, democracy, but also to maybe have a program that has the children challenge their parents to go with them and exercise that democratic vote. Because we are seeing drops in those percentages every year. A high voter turnout for us is 35% maybe. Generally, we get just over 22%. And, so I guess I would just like to turn it back to you to encourage a program where the children say, let's go and do this together, and we'll all exercise our democratic vote. But thank you for your presentation, and thank you for your work in this.
Thank you. Councillor Ma?
Kelsey, thank you for this. As an earlier speaker said, we're very fortunate in this country. It may not be perfect, but we have a democratic system. And I strongly believe that we need to work to preserve it, to enhance it. And I love what you're doing because it works with younger people. Hope it becomes part of their culture, or part of them to say, hey, I need to find out what all these councillors are talking about, and I'm going to play my part by voting for them, engaging, or whatever other ways. And I know Councillor Back mentioned that during elections we're candidates and or invited to speak at schools and talk about things. Is there other ways that members of council, hopefully after the election, can support what you're doing? Like, would it help for us to meet with students or talk about things? Like, I'm just wondering from your perspective, is there something else that we can do to help advance people's knowledge and understanding of how our system works? Because it's not always taught in school. So thank you.
Thank you. Your Worship, in reference to Councillor Ma's question, we have a program called Rep Day, which connects members of Parliament with educators across the country. Unfortunately, we just work at the federal level because it's manageable for the number of teammates we have working on it, which is 2. But it has shown that teachers and students are incredibly receptive to having their representatives come and speak to them. They are prepared with wonderful questions, everything from just demystifying who you are as people, how you ended up in your position today, to more difficult questions about the choices being made for their community. So I would certainly encourage council to engage with schools in the district because there is an appetite, and students, they might not have the language to describe the politics in the community, but they are engaged and they're listening and they're curious.
It's very encouraging. I recently went to a school, their grade 10 social studies class. Just blasted me with a bunch of questions on how things work. It was very rewarding to know that our future looks bright because there are people asking smart questions and feeling involved. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. What I'll just comment on is that the statistics you provided today are based on a federal election, and unfortunately, provincial and worse so with municipal is that we have much lower levels of voter participation. And I do go into the schools and do, I think in about grade 4, the kids typically have a government unit, and we go in and talk about what the local government is responsible for. Not only is there confusion amongst the parents as to what's local government, provincial, and federal, but with the kids, you work through those differences with government. And try to tell them, before you get to school today, you've already touched about 6 or 7 District of North Vancouver or Metro Vancouver services with your sidewalks and roads and shower in the morning and washroom and all the different services that you get before you even get to school in that day. You've already touched a whole bunch of municipal services, and people think that the most relevant government to them is federal or provincial. And the reality is local government is very accessible. You can come in and raise questions or concerns with them. And also the services are just very local to your community. They're the trails and schools and parks and all of the facilities around. So your rec centers as well and libraries. So we try to encourage that in younger kids, but in 2008, we hit a low. We had 16.7% voter turnout in the municipal election in 2008. And we fluctuate mostly in the mid-20s to mid-30s as a municipal government. But from time to time, I guess we don't spark enough conversation. And so you do get relatively low voter turnouts at some times. And so it'd be great to hear initiatives that you may have to try to raise awareness leading up to those times. It's always an awkward position when the politicians are trying to encourage voter turnout. There's typically a perceived bias and benefit. So it's best when it's handled by independent organizations. But what can we do to support more civics prep for a future municipal election? I know Councillor Ma's question was generally about elections. Is there anything specific about municipal elections?
Thank you, Your Worship. In regards to your question, I would say we also face less voter turnout in our student votes at the municipal level, we get the most for the federal, then less provincial, then the lowest teacher registrations for the municipal. And so we are working hard to build that relationship with teachers and show them how relevant the programming is, even though it might not be a line in their curriculum. And so we've so far had 3 student votes at the municipal level, the local level in British Columbia. And so we're hoping the more teachers do them, the more they'll incorporate it into their lesson planning going forward. And I think in regards to, they're always in October, and I think that's also a challenge because teachers aren't really checking their email until the first week of September. And then by that time, they think it might be too late to register, it might be too late to deliver the programming. So we are definitely making efforts to get our registration system up and going in June. And so the teachers are thinking about it, or they've indicated their interest and they hit the ground running in September for the program. But this is also something that we struggle with in terms of our teacher engagement. And we are actually creating, it'll be out probably this winter, a resource library that is for students year-round, rather than just coinciding with the student vote, to encourage teachers to be engaging with civic education year-round.
Great. Well, we do have a couple of people here in the audience who do help run all candidates meetings for the broader community, and maybe we can get some students from student votes to throw some questions into that process as well. That'd be great. Councillor Forbes, you have a comment or question?
Yes, thank you. Something that I've run into when I'm knocking on doors and talking to people is sometimes the parents, they've come here, they don't speak the language very well. And the other thing that I run into too is I will get them saying, well, what is the municipal government? And then I start explaining what services that they get from there. And then they go, oh, I don't bother, I just vote federal. Then it all trickles down anyway. And they don't really understand. So I've always thought if the teachers could set up sort of a questionnaire and have the kids go home and interview their parents with those questions, it would get more dialogue with the parents, because I've also run into where a parent will answer the door. And immediately when I say I'm running in the municipal election, immediately they go, just a minute, I'll get my child. And they go get their 18-year-old. So if there could be something where it gets brought home to the home by the child and interviews the parents, who would probably be more willing to just be at home and answering questions than a politician at the door. Just something like that. And it would expand the parents' knowledge, and it would get the kids more involved as well. Just a suggestion. But I appreciate everything you're doing, and we need to get more of it done.
I certainly agree. Thank you. That ties in with what Councillor Murray was saying earlier as well. I think I'll bring that back to the team as maybe optional activity or some sort of framework that we could incorporate into the lessons. Thank you.
Council, the motion's been for receipt has been moved and seconded. I see no further discussion. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. On behalf of the council, thank you very much for your delegation today.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Have a good evening.
Okay, carrying on with the business of this evening's meeting. First item up for discussion, or not up for discussion, this is up for adoption, is item 8.1. This is bylaws 8779, 8780, 8781, and 8782 OCP amendment, rezoning road closure housing agreement for mixed-use development at 1246 to 1268 Lynn Valley Road and 3050 to 3174 Baird Road, Lynn Valley Mall and Draycott Gardens. This item is returning after second and third reading. It's up for adoption and it's not up for debate. I will move the recommendation. There's a second by Councillor Back. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried with Councillors Hanson, Forbes, and Murray opposed. Next item up for consideration, also at adoption, is bylaw 8778, text amendment rezoning 100 Amherst Avenue, Chemtrade.
Your worship, before council proceeds to adoption, I have a procedural motion.
I Okay, what's your question?
That consideration of bylaw 8778 be deferred until the first regular meeting of the newly elected council.
I'm going to deny your request. I'm going to be moving the motion on the floor today. And so,
Your worship, I understand that the debate on the,
so is this a point of privilege?
are you
or
ruling it
point
out of order or?
Yes, I am actually, because it's at adoption. It's not at debate. We've already had the debate. You voted against the matter at an earlier stage. Now it's up for adoption. Council's been made well aware that the next step is consideration of adoption. I have, under provincial law, the right to put a motion on the floor for consideration for council. I'm going to be moving the recommendation. I'm going to seek a seconder, and then I'm going to carry on the discussion.
Could you identify the section of the procedure bylaw that prohibits a motion to defer before the adoption vote is taken?
Refer the matter to the clerk for clarification.
Thank you, through your worship. Where the procedure bylaw is absent, we go to Robert's Rules of Order, which says that deferral is must go to the next regular meeting, which would be September 21st. It would not be appropriate in this instance or advisable, as it does put the procedural fairness of the proceedings at risk, as it is from a closed public hearing. Therefore, does extend the time that council may be subject to new information. So it would put increase that procedural fairness risk.
Your worship, I understand that debate on the bylaw itself is not permitted for adoption, but I am not seeking debate on the bylaw. I am seeking to introduce a procedural motion to defer consideration before the question of adoption is put.
And so I'm ruling it out of order because I have the prerogative to put a motion on the floor for the council's consideration, which was shared in the council package ahead of time. So everybody knew that this was the next step we were going to consider. And so I'm putting that motion on the floor, and then you started asking the questions that you've had. So now I need to seek a seconder on that motion. I've got Councillor Hanson. And so we're going to be now voting on adoption of that motion. Okay, there is no debate on the matter. We've debated the matter back at second and third, and it passed forward to this point in the process. And so now it is up for adoption. I'm prepared to call the question on the motion. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion passes with Councillors Pope, Forbes, and Murray opposed. Thank you, Council. Next item up for consideration is item 8.3. I do have a speaker signed up to speak at the matter. Joe Geluch, if you welcome. You have 3 minutes to address the council.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks for having me back. My name is Joe Geluch. I live at 625 Riverside Drive, North Vancouver, and I'm the applicant for the 36 townhomes and 8 lock-off suites at Riverside on the agenda tonight. My letter is in your package, so I don't see any need to repeat it. Explains candidly how we got here. And tonight, I just wanted to make 3 points in advance of your discussion or decision. First point, how close this is to moving forward. Everything's agreed, the full frontage, the rebuild of the intersection, all of the charges, and roughly $130,000 per home in public contributions before construction begins. Everything except one item, which is existing catchment-wide storm capacity condition being placed entirely onto our little project. This is on a different street, the segment that's being asked of us. Our engineering shows an oversized stormwater detention tank on site at our cost, stating that we had no flows to this existing condition. Even there, both staff and applicant have now named a solution, which is fair cost sharing. A written framework was sent to staff as late as last week. And we are asking for some time and direction to be able to work with staff on a solution. Second point, the risk. If the bylaw is abandoned and we all receive nothing, it's not a less situation, it's simply nothing. And there's no trade-off that justifies that decision today. There's no saving, there's no new infrastructure, there's no policy gain. Abandonment also makes the problem worse. It could close the door just as federal and provincial development charge relief and infrastructure programs are taking shape. The very tools that may become part of the solution here. So a referral, on the other hand, really costs the district nothing, keeps all of these benefits alive, and gives staff and my team the time and direction to try and get this right. My final point, referral doesn't reverse the uncontested community support or the unanimous support that this council gave here in March, but an abandonment would. So I'd ask you to choose option 2, refer this back to staff with some direction to work with us to find a solution. I'd be happy to answer any questions if that's appropriate.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Councillor Ma, do you have a recommendation? Oh, actually, sorry, I have a staff presentation first. Yan Zhang, I believe you had a 5-minute. Oh, on the virtual. Okay.
Can you hear me? Good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
I can hear you clearly. Welcome.
Thank you. Staff would like to offer some commentary for this item. The subject rezoning received first, second, and third readings of the bylaw in March this year. And as it is typical with all rezoning applications in the district, there are bylaw enactment conditions that are secured as part of that rezoning approval. And following that, the applicant stated that they could not fulfill the full scope of offsite services, works and services, which form part of that rezoning conditions. In particular, the applicant requested that district remove the requirement of upgrading the 75-meter-long storm main pipe along Mount Seymour Parkway. And because this upgrade is necessary to service this development as well as other development in the Maplewood area, staff cannot support the applicant's request. If this work is not completed by this applicant, it will fall on the district taxpayer to cover the costs, which is not consistent with the principle of development paying for its share of growth within our town and village centers. In the applicant's letter, which is attached to staff report, they stated that they will not proceed with the application if the storm main upgrade and a couple of other conditions are not removed by the district. Therefore, staff must make recommendations to council in terms of what to do with bylaw 8770 that received council approval in principle. Option one shown on the slide. Thank you. I just want to wait a moment for both options to be on the screen. Thank you very much. So option one, based on the applicant's stated intent of not to fulfill servicing requirements secured as part of rezoning, staff recommend that the bylaw be abandoned. If council chooses this option, the rezoning application would come to a close, meaning it is rejected. In the future, the applicant could choose to resubmit a new rezoning application for the site, which will be evaluated by staff and in turn considered by council. The other option in the report is to refer the application back to staff. This is the applicant's preferred option. The applicant cited project financial viability as the key reason why they cannot meet the rezoning enactment conditions. And since the writing of this report, they have submitted to council and staff another letter. And this latest letter, which was circulated to council this morning, in that they restated their financial hardship, as well as their hope that there might be alternative funding sources, such as they pointed to, the provincial and federal DCC program announcement. And that may be possibly available to them, and that they will need time to see how that will play out, and therefore they prefer to keep the option open. In the end, council is free to choose option 2, which would simply place the application on hold until possible changes in circumstances, e.g. the provincial and federal DCC program, or the applicant has found a way to meet their servicing requirements. Thank you. And that concludes our introductory remarks. In addition to Mina Sami, project planner, in attendance in chamber, we also have Dan Milburn, GM of Planning, Properties, and Permits available online to answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, Yan Zhang. Councillor Ma, I see your hand up for comment recommendation.
I will move option 2.
Okay. Is there a seconder for option 2? Councillor Back. Councillor Ma, your comments?
Thank you, Councillor Back. After reading the staff's report, considering the letters provided by the applicant and speaking this afternoon with Ms. Zhang, I, and I hope a few of us on council, would like to give the applicant and staff a little more time to address the outstanding concerns. I recognize that the current financial climate is challenging for many businesses, including developers. And this, I think we need to remember that it's not the district that builds in homes, it's developers. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Not too much to add there other than to say that adding a little bit more time into the process here and going back and trying to work with the applicant, I think there's no risk in us doing that. But if we were to simply reject it, it starts a very long process over again. And I think ultimately we do want to see more housing built in this area. And so I would like to just see staff continue to work with the applicant.
Thank you. Just my own comments on the matter. I'm okay with extending time. I was a bit surprised when I read the report that, the relatively quick turnaround from a unanimous support to a staff opposition, that is unusual. And I think it's telling me that there's other conversations out there that have said that there's an intent issue, that the developer doesn't intend to pay for the offsite works. And that is problematic. And so I want to be clear that while I'm willing to go down the road to have more time for consideration, I have no interest in reducing the obligation on the developer to provide the solution for stormwater management on the site. We expect it of every other development, including single family houses, not just developer projects, that they have to address the issue of stormwater management on their site, particularly in these flood sensitive areas that like an area that's in such close proximity to the Seymour River. And so I don't want it to give the signal that I want our staff to negotiate a way out of the contribution or some other thing. If the provincial program or federal programs do come along and help support these kinds of circumstances, which I don't believe they do. I don't think they've mentioned it at all in any of their circumstances that they're going to do direct funding to a particular developer. I think most of the programs are focused on compensating the municipalities that take on higher density levels and trying to bring down the DCCs in communities that go to higher density levels, in which case it's a public side benefit, not an individual developer side benefit in that situation. So I'm fine with taking some additional time. I know that the application has been in process for about 2 years, with the decision only relatively fresh in March. And so I think taking a little more time is fine, but I just don't want it to have the signal out there that this in some way means we're going to soften our expectation that this developer provides the stormwater management offsite. So I'll support the recommendation. It's just when it comes down to it, I won't be advancing the project unless we have a firm agreement that is applicable not just on this property, but on every other development that's going on in the community right now. Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Thank you, Mayor Little, and I concur absolutely with your comments and Ms. Zhang's presentation. We cannot signal that we are going to afford the taxpayers to support the responsibilities of the development community. And, this is the complexity of development, the cost of development, and the risk of development. And often these projects, it's a timing issue. And obviously the timing is very challenging right now. But growth does need to pay for growth. And regionally, we are looking at the challenges of DCC programs being reduced by the federal government and the challenges of legislation that the provincial government has applied to us is equally complex and very, very concerning. So if we begin to forgive the costs of dealing with the required infrastructure to be able to support these developments, we're going to have a pretty long lineup at that doorway. And that is not a message that we're going to send. We need to be consistent, and we need to make sure that these developments are sustainable. And the challenges of building on floodplains is significant. It is not for the faint of heart, even from a single family perspective. Our stormwater regulations have been put in place because of the significant amount of water that we deal with. And as a neighbor and resident of this area, off of Windridge and Mount Seymour Parkway, and somebody that grew up in this community, there's a lot of water at the bottom of Mount Seymour Parkway. It's an old riverbed. And so, there's often challenges that are unexpected and very costly. So I would suggest that, the applicant goes into this with their eyes very wide open, and the cost that you could incur going forward. So I will not signal that this would be supported going forward. Time, yes, we're certainly willing to look at a little bit more time given the recent approval, but certainly not to signal that there would be some forgiveness of costs that are required as part of this application.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Ma, second time.
I'm just reading option 2 again. Maybe I'll wear my glasses this time. Can I ask staff to clarify? Does option 2 offer the applicant or includes as an option the waiver of or forgiveness of costs associated with storm main upgrade? Can you clarify that, please?
Yes, through the mayor, I think I'll first answer that question. And I see Ms. Melbourne is also online. So when we drafted this report, we were at the end of negotiation with the applicants, and they have said that they do not want to proceed with the 75-meter storm main upgrade. And so the option we presented is abandonment to the bylaw or refer back to staff. And then that referral is to potentially, if council do give us the direction that we will be paying for the stormwater storm main upgrade, we will need time to look at the financial servicing and policy implications is for that reason. But essentially what I hear from Councillor Ma from your direction is that we will go with option 2, which is refer back to staff. But this time is just to allow the applicant more time to be able to align their approach to our servicing expectation.
So that needs to be amended because that's not what is said in the second part of this.
It doesn't direct staff to negotiate away anything, I think is Councillor Ma's point.
I'm not. The option 2, I agree, it could be clarified, but it is not my intent to give to have the district cover costs of a developer. The key that I heard from discussions is to allow a little more time. And as I've been told, unless staff can say otherwise, there is no hard cost to the district by allowing this applicant a little more time. Can you clarify that, please?
Yan Zhang, can you clarify, is there a cost to the municipality by delaying this process?
Yeah, through your worship, yeah, there would be no additional cost to the district by going with option 2, because option 2, as amended by Councillor Ma, would essentially means allowing the applicant additional time to meet our servicing requirements.
Okay.
Maybe it should say that.
It says what it says. I think it just, obviously our comments have gone beyond what's in the motion, but I think it's still clear. I have other speakers if you're included. Okay, thank you. Councillor Hanson?
Yeah, thank you very much. And I will be voting for the referral motion, but I wish it to be clear, I'm voting to give them more time. I'm not voting to change any terms.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see no further speak. Oh, Councillor Forbes.
I would just follow with what Councillor Hanson has said. I don't want to, I'm willing to give time, but I'm not willing to have us cover any of the costs.
Thank you very much. Okay, I see no further speakers on the matter. Prepared to call the question. On referral, all those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. The next item up for adoption is item 8.4. This is bylaw 8771, rezoning for a 6-unit townhouse at 873 Premier Street. The item is at adoption, so there's no debate on the matter. I'll be moving the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Back. It is for adoption, no debate. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion's carried unanimously. Item 8.5, this is bylaws 880 and 8803, sorry, 8802 and 8803, Heritage Revitalization Agreement and Heritage Designation for 3526 Everglade Place. This item is up for adoption, no debate. It's been moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a second? Second by Councillor Ma. It is, again, no debate. I'll call the question on adoption. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item up for discussion is 8.6, which is bylaws 8787 and 8799, new detached residential zones R1 and R2. That the District North Vancouver OCP Amendment Bylaw, bylaws 8787 is adopted, and that District North Vancouver Zoning Bylaw 8799 is adopted. Again, it's up for adoption, not debate. Is there a mover on the matter? Prepared to move the matter. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Hanson. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Next item up for consideration is item 8.7. This is bylaw 8800 2026 to 2030 financial plan amendment. This item was also recently debated, and so it is up for adoption. I'll move the staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Forbes. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you, Council. Next item up for consideration is the Roche Point Park dedication. This is item 8.8 in this evening's agenda. We do have staff presentation from Nicole Foth. I believe it's about a 5-minute presentation at the front end. Welcome. When you're comfortable, please proceed.
Which one are we?
Right, thank you, Mayor Little. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This presentation provides an update on the Roche Point area parklands and outlines the proposed steps required to prepare a park dedication bylaw for Council's consideration. On April 27, 2026, Council directed staff to prepare bylaws and provide information related to the Roche Point parklands. A park dedication bylaw is an optional additional layer of protection available under the community charter for municipally owned land. If adopted, the land must remain in public ownership and be used for park purposes. Any future removal of the dedication will require a process involving the assent of electors. The site includes 23 district-owned parcels, including Roche Point Park and the adjacent forest, and an undeveloped road allowance in the middle of the site. Together, these lands total approximately 26 hectares. The site is located next to Tsleil-Waututh Nation lands, Seymour Golf and Country Club, Sherwood Park Elementary School, and the residential neighborhood. Based on technical work completed for the draft nature and biodiversity strategy, the site has significant ecological value with moderate to very high biodiversity potential, and it is identified as a major habitat hub within the district's habitat network. The next few slides will cover steps to facilitate the park dedication bylaw for the site. 3 things are recommended: an OCP amendment, a zoning bylaw amendment, and a road closure bylaw, and then a park dedication bylaw. The current official community plan designates most of the site as parks, open space, and natural areas, or POSNA. There are also 4 district-owned lots designated residential level 2, or Res 2, and this would need to be addressed for alignment with park purposes before dedication. To support park dedication for the entire site, staff are proposing OCP Amendment Bylaw 8806 to redesignate the 4 residentially designated lots from RES2 to POSNA. This amendment would provide consistent land use designation across the site, and it requires a public hearing. The site currently contains a mix of park and residential zoning. While park dedication can occur regardless of the zoning, revising the zoning improves consistency and the intended uses of the site. Accordingly, staff are proposing rezoning bylaw 8810 to rezone the residentially zoned portions of the site from RS1 and RS3 to natural parkland. And one note for awareness for council is there is a minor administrative correction to the map legend in the bylaw in the agenda package, which would be corrected before the public hearing if this bylaw is given first reading. The site includes an undeveloped road corridor, which originally was intended as part of the 1983 Seymour Development Program. The road must first be legally closed before it can be incorporated into the future park dedication bylaw. In summary, this map shows the proposed park dedication area following adoption of the bylaws described in the presentation. This would create a single contiguous park dedication area encompassing the Roche Point parklands. This slide summarizes the proposed work plan and approval process. At the top in purple, the proposed work plan begins with council's consideration of the OCP and zoning amendments, followed by a public hearing and bylaw readings in September. Next, shown in blue, the road closure bylaw could be completed in fall 2026. And last, in green, the park dedication bylaw could be introduced and adopted after the prerequisite bylaws are adopted. This concludes the presentation, and staff are happy to answer any questions from council regarding the site, the proposed bylaws, or the park dedication process. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nicole Foth. And I see Councillor Murray.
Yes, I'll move it.
Moved by Councillor Murray. Is there a second on the matter? Councillor Hanson. Councillor Murray, your comments, please.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank council for support of the motion that I brought forward in regards to this parkland. It's a very special piece of land that actually hosts a small amount of old growth that was presented and recorded by Mr. David Cook, our local resident biologist. And it's a very special piece of land. And I thank staff for going through this because there is complexities with this site because the multiple identifiable areas of zoning. So I'm happy to move this forward, Mayor Little, and I look forward to the public hearing in the fall. And thank you for securing the timeline in the fall to have this adopted and wrapped up prior to the election. Thank you.
Councillor Hanson, additional comment?
Not too many, but thank you to Councillor Murray for taking the initiative. And I know this area well. It's a very treasured part of the district, and I look forward to us taking the steps necessary to render it all parkland within this council term. Thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you very much. I see no further speakers. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Look forward to the public hearing in the fall. Thank you. The next item up for consideration is 8.9, digital advertising opportunity at bus stops. A council member has raised a concern about a conflict. Councillor Back, your comments?
Yes, I will declare a conflict in that this involves an agreement with my employer, which is Pattison Outdoor. So I'll be recusing myself.
Thank you very much. If you could move to the back room and we'll call you back out when we're done considering the matter. Thank you. Okay, I understand that I have a presentation from staff. So we have Mr. Taha here, and he's going to do a brief 5-minute presentation. Come on up. We're going to you right away. There you go.
I think the slides need to change. Oh.
Recording in progress.
And if somebody has their microphone turned on their phone and they're streaming the video tonight, you do need to shut that off. Make sure it's not me.
Could be my laptop.
Yeah, I think it's you.
Yeah. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor and Council. For those listening online, my name is Ihab Taha, the Section Manager of Transportation at the District of North Vancouver. Tonight, I'll be presenting a report regarding the proposed amendment to the district's existing agreement with Pattison Outdoor Advertising to allow digital advertising at select bus stops within the district. I'll begin with some background on the existing agreement, summarize the proposed changes, review the initial locations, and conclude with staff's recommendation. The district has an existing agreement with Pattison Outdoor Advertising that has been in place for over a decade. Under this agreement, Pattison is responsible for installing, operating, and maintaining bus shelters that contain advertising throughout the district. The advertising at these shelters is currently limited to traditional static advertising panels in paper format. These advertising signs are exempt from the district's sign bylaw with approval authority delegated to the municipal engineer. The proposal before council tonight would amend this existing agreement with Pattison to permit digital advertising at bus shelters. Digital bus shelter advertising has become common in Metro Vancouver over the past several years. Pattison has deployed these displays in neighboring municipalities, both on the North Shore within the city of North Vancouver and the District of West Vancouver, as well as other parts of the Lower Mainland, including Burnaby, Surrey, Coquitlam, Maple Ridge, and Richmond. These displays include ambient light sensors that automatically adjust brightness throughout the day and night, maintaining lighting levels similar to existing static bus shelter advertising. Unlike traditional paper advertisements, each digital display rotates through 8 advertisements on a 64-second cycle, with each advertisement displayed for 8 seconds. Pattison has proposed dedicating one of the 8 advertising spaces for district use at no cost. This provides an additional communication channel to display municipal messaging, community notices, and public notifications. Another benefit is emergency communication. Pattison's Network Operations Center can coordinate with the RCMP and the province to override advertisements and display emergency notifications and Amber Alerts. The primary change being requested is to amend the 2015 agreement to allow digital advertising at bus stops. Pattison would continue to fund the installation, operation, and ongoing maintenance of these shelters as they do today. Under the proposed amendment, the district would receive 25% of the net advertising revenue generated from each digital shelter. For 7 initial locations, Pattison estimates that the district would receive between $95,000 and $143,000 in new annual revenue, subject to advertiser demand and depending on whether the shelters feature one-sided or two-sided displays. Additional revenue could be realized if more digital shelters are added in the future beyond the initial 7 locations. The exact revenue sharing model would be finalized as part of the amended agreement. This map shows the 7 initial locations proposed for digital advertising. These locations were identified collaboratively by Pattison and district staff. They were selected based on several considerations, including high traffic volumes, availability of power supply, and sufficient road right-of-way to accommodate the shelters. 5 of the proposed locations are existing bus shelters that would be retrofitted with digital displays. 2 locations would include new bus shelters with digital advertising. Implementation is anticipated in late 2026 or early 2027, subject to Council's endorsement this evening. Consistent with the existing 2015 agreement, additional locations may be added in the future, subject to mutual agreement between the district and Pattison. Staff are recommending that Council direct the municipal engineer to negotiate and execute an amendment to the existing agreement with Pattison Outdoor Advertising to permit digital advertising at bus stops. Staff are also recommending that Council support the installation of digital advertising at the 7 initial locations and authorize the municipal engineer to approve additional locations in the future where mutually agreed upon with Pattison Outdoor Advertising. An alternative option has also been presented whereby Council could direct staff not to pursue digital advertising opportunities at this time. However, this option is not recommended by staff as it would forego a new source of annual revenue as well as the public benefits associated with upgraded transit shelters. That concludes my presentation and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murray, do you have a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
And second by Councillor Ma. Thank you. Councillor Murray, your comment.
Thank you, Mayor Little. And this resulted out of a request that I've been making for many, many years to add a bus stop, and I'd like it to be the first one on the list, which is at Mount Seymour Parkway and Seymour Boulevard, which is on the southeast side of Mount Seymour Parkway, just past the Superstore. It's a little bit of a precarious area in that they're going to have to build up a support system to hold the shelter, but there is no shelter there. It's simply a bench. And with the amount of people that are using the bus from Superstore and doing grocery shopping, it pains me to watch them sit there in the pouring rain, other than their other option, which is to walk down to Riverside to sit under the shelter there. So I'm happy that we are looking at more shelters with our inclement weather. It's important. And it's been unfortunate that this one has gone unsheltered for so many years. But I'm truly supportive of this. And I just do want to say though, that, we want to just make sure that there's no negative light pollution that would be impacted on, obviously there's different areas that we're looking at. Some are very, light filled in regards to the town and village centers. This area is very dark. And so it's helpful to have that light and that security. We just want to make sure that it's not going to spill over into, the residences and impacting that. So I'm very supportive of this and thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Ma.
Thank you for this. I don't currently work in advertising like Councillor Back, but I have in the past. And I like this proposal because with advertising agencies providing the shelter in return for us providing real estate for their signs, we get something needed in the community, and hopefully the full costs or the costs are covered by someone else. So that's a great option. Your report mentions that there are 7 initial locations proposed. I'm interested in having more bus shelters and benches in the district for our residents, and this could potentially tie in with the strategy that's being developed for aging and older person. Can you comment on the process to increase the number of locations, and how does this tie in with or coordinate with TransLink?
Mr. Taha?
Thank you, Councillor Ma, and through the mayor. We would typically work directly with Pattison on identifying future locations. So it's usually a mutual benefit. Either Pattison comes to us with a location and offers that location, and then we agree or not, or we go to Pattison and propose a location. Sometimes our objectives aren't fully aligned. That's why you have to have both parties agree, because their main objective is advertising. Our main objective is bus shelters, right? And so typically there is a good overlap between those two objectives, and we just work together to find that overlap.
If I can ask a follow-up question.
Please.
In advertising world, the agencies want where there's high traffic and visibility. One of the highest one that I can think about in terms of public transit is Phipps Exchange. I'm not sure if this is your area, but would you comment if there's actually any bus shelter advertising at Phipps Exchange? Is that permitted by TransLink? Maybe the mayor might know if that.
I don't know where the line is between the two, Mr. Taha.
Yeah, through the mayor, I believe I'm not aware of any digital advertising on Phipps Exchange. I haven't really seen it on private property, TransLink property. I've seen it mostly on road allowance. But we could in the future. Pattison would need to engage with TransLink directly if they were wanting to pursue that option.
I just think it's potentially an opportunity to, if TransLink agreed, and this is something that Pattison or design company wanted, they get a prime location, and potentially we get funds to put in bus shelters and benches in areas that aren't so prime, but they spread it around the community. But just a thought. I'll plant that seed with you. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, the advertising policy under TransLink's been inconsistent. So Lonsdale Quay used to have about 20 billboards in the underground area, and they switched it for public art, and forgoing a tremendous amount of revenue. I don't understand that decision when you already had it in place, but also the revenue from print advertising fluctuates fairly significantly at times. I will say I have a bit of a concern about the 8 seconds. I understand that they want to be able to flip to as many of their slides during the course of somebody passing through that space so that it gets more eyeballs on the different ads. But I'm worried about the distraction to drivers on the road. And so I'm wondering what capabilities we have in the negotiation to maybe slow that down to every minute or so that it's not constantly flipping. You have a neighbor that lives across the street and now it's all blue, now it's all green, now it's all white, every 8 seconds. That seems arduous for a neighbor to endure. And so I guess what ability do we have to go back and say, we'll agree to this, but what does it do to the advertising rate if we put a slower rotation in place to lower the annoyance to neighbors?
Thanks, Mayor Little. So we did reach out to Pattison about that option. They would prefer not to, primarily because every one of their shelters across all of Canada is based on that 8 seconds. And so when an advertiser approaches Pattison, they're approaching them to get access to a regional network. So they might use Burnaby, Coquitlam, and North Van. The appeal of North Van will be significantly reduced if we're different than the rest of the region and with less advertising opportunities. So it would be challenging to not follow that network.
Yeah, it seems like it's like it's a reasonable trade-off, though. I mean, you tell that advertiser, oh, by the way, you're going to be up every 8 seconds, only for 8 seconds, or you tell them you're going to be up every 8 minutes for 1 whole minute, where everybody passing through that area for the minute sees you. It seems like, as far as the advertiser is concerned, it's a little bit of a trade-off. I can recognize that frequency allows you to make sure that more eyeballs traveling through the space have seen all of the slides that are on there. But I'm just wondering about the annoyance factor to the neighbors when it's constantly changing. And to their credit, I got to say, the digital advertising they have in space already, it's not super bright. I've seen ones that are super bright, and these don't tend to be super bright, and I appreciate that. As a, particularly as it would play a role as a distraction to drivers and people. Exactly what they want to do is take eyeballs off the road, exactly when I don't want them to take eyeballs off the road. But I guess the question is, what ability does because we'd be giving some authority to the chief engineer to make decisions on future shelters and extending future agreements. And I think what I'm hearing from you is that it's a total package or nothing at all. Either you agree to all of our terms, or you'd be such an anomaly that we don't really necessarily want your business. Is that a fair characterization of it, Mr. Taha?
It's really difficult for me to speak on behalf of Pattison as a private entity. I can't say for sure. It does diminish our negotiation considerably, I would say, based on the feedback we've received to date. What I can say is that they have yet to receive a complaint about the speed of rotation. So they have this all across Canada, and according to them, they have not received any complaints about the rotation. Now, that might be different, but they would have to speak on their behalf.
Councillor Mary?
I think it's important to make sure, as I said before, that we are very selective in our locations, where they're isolated locations and they're dark. I think it's a good security. And could I ask if it's a fade or it's a turn on and off? Is it like a fade from one? I can't really, recall what it looks like on the spot, but do they fade from one advertisement to another?
Yeah. I don't know for certain. We could certainly follow up with Pattison to confirm. I think they're equally intent on making this consistent with the streetscape and the lighting levels. They don't want to attract, nuance or public complaints, because that actually jeopardizes their intent.
Right.
So I don't think they are intentionally putting in the technology to make it so that it seems like a static shelter as opposed to a digital shelter.
So I think that's important, given that it's a visual device, and it might have been nice to have an example of what it actually looked like. But as long as, like in a video, for us to actually see how it flips, given the concern from Mayor Little, but certainly a fade and lighting levels to be adjusted, and you're asking us to give you the opportunity to negotiate future bus shelters. And I think it's important for council to weigh in on that in the future, not to just give carte blanche, given that we're entering into something new, at least for the time being, and making sure that there's no negative impact to, surrounding residences or people across the street. So how can we incorporate that into this motion?
Through the mayor, I think the intent here would be not to go into, you wouldn't. By its nature, you typically wouldn't put a shelter in a cul-de-sac road where residents are going to be concerned. So I think by its nature, we share those concerns, and we would want to avoid creating those issues. Council is welcome to amend the motion if you so.
I think we just want to cautiously approach this going forward to make sure that we get it right. Certainly areas that are very dark and inaccessible. This is a great addition. We just want to be careful of the surrounding impact, and it's just we just want to cautiously approach all of these future ones that you're considering, not being enticed by the revenue generation. It's more about the livability of our neighborhoods neighborhoods and our residents. And, we want to make sure it's not bothersome to drivers or, and obviously with no complaints, that gives me some security. But those are, the primary issues that we're concerned about. So I think there's a way forward, Mary Beth.
Yeah, I'll be supportive of it at this stage, but I will say that if there are complaints in the neighborhood, I probably wouldn't be expanding the program, and would be reviewing what we can do with the existing facilities. So I'll be supportive at this point, but I want to see how that works. Rotating every 8 seconds, just in my mind now, not seeing it in place, makes me feel like it's going to be a huge draw of attention. But I guess I should probably go camp out at Lonsdale and 13th and see theirs in action. I'll be supportive. I see no further speakers on the matter. I see no further speakers. Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Yes, you can welcome Councillor back.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Mr. Taha. Okay, the next item up for consideration is the climate action update. This is item 810, and we do have a staff presentation, 5 minutes. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of this report is really twofold. Number one, to provide Council with a summary of progress on the district's emission reduction and climate resilience initiatives, both in our own operations and the community as a whole, and to advise Council regarding the cessation of 2 key provincial climate funding programs, the Local Government Climate Action Program, known as LGCAP, and wildfire fuel reduction funding through the Fire Smart program. The district is taking action in 6 key areas to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, protect and enhance ecosystem health, and improve our resilience to climate change. And I'll first provide an update on corporate emissions and then turn it over to Mr. Wright to talk about community emissions. I want to note that the reductions seen on this graph are the result of sustained work over many years by many staff in many different departments. And really, it's because of this fundamental commitment that the district has seen the reductions that you see here. Corporate emissions from our operations have decreased by 31% since 2011. This is despite adding new facilities and fleet to provide services to a growing population. Corporate building emissions in 2025 decreased by 32% compared to 2011. This is due to low carbon and efficiency upgrades completed as part of building renewals, low carbon new construction, and adjustments to building operations. For example, recent updates to the Parkgate Library, shown here, reduced energy usage by 28%, while also adding cooling and air filtration to increase resilience to wildfire smoke and extreme heat events. Fleet emissions have decreased by 29% since 2011 due to improvements in efficiency, electrification of fleet vehicles, and using renewable diesel in larger fleet vehicles. And I'm now going to turn it over to Mr. Wright.
Thank you. The district has also made significant progress in reducing community-wide emissions, including a 21% reduction since 2007. This is primarily due to reductions in the buildings and transportation sectors. Progress will require continued council leadership, collaboration with partners, and continued initiatives in the community to reduce emissions from these sectors. Reductions in the building sector are due to improvements in efficiency and lower carbon energy use. The district continues to coordinate programs and policies with the District of West Vancouver and the City of North Vancouver to enable efficient and resilient new construction and to support residents in making home energy upgrades, like installing heat pumps and solar panels. Since 2020, over 900 permits were issued for heat pumps in existing homes. Reductions in the transportation sector are due to an increase in walking and cycling trips, adoption of electric vehicles, and land use planning to locate new homes close to transit and services. Additional initiatives include the North Shore e-bike share program and increasing access to public EV charging for those that are unable to charge at home. Zero waste initiatives are advancing, including efforts to reduce wood waste from the demolition of older homes and repair cafes to help residents fix broken household items. Work is underway to improve resilience to climate-related hazards, for example, by enabling cooling and air filtration in buildings, restoring coastal areas vulnerable to sea level rise, and reducing wildfire risk through proactive forest management. Adoption of clean energy technologies like heat pumps, solar panels, and EV charging has increased significantly since the Climate Action Plan was approved in 2019. This transition is driven by increased demand for cooling and energy efficient technologies, government incentives, and support that connects North Shore residents with home energy experts. Over the past 15 years, provincial funding has helped the district reduce emissions, improve resilience, and access additional external grants. There are two programs, the Local Government Climate Action Program and the Fire Smart Fuel Management Program. The Local Government Climate Action Program has not been renewed, and annual funding for fuel mitigation is no longer available under the Fire Smart program due to limited funds. This report recommends a letter is sent to the province advocating for these important programs to be reinstated as they are critical to ensure continued progress. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll be moving a staff recommendation. Is there a seconder? I think we've got Councillor Back at the top there. Councillor Back, seconder. Just my own comments on this, particularly the wildfire fuel management program and the Fire Smart program. I'm shocked that at this time with the forest fires throughout the province of BC and the challenges that we're facing, even relatively locally, and the smoke damage all over the place, the international debate about smoke and forest fires, that this is where the province decided to cut. I understand reallocating resources possibly based on need in the community, but municipalities that want to take proactive action to reduce the risk of a forest fire becoming a house fire or a house fire becoming a forest fire should be supported. And the District of North Vancouver, since the inception of this program, has been the #1 user of resources under this program since its inception. We started applying to the fund through UBCM early on, and every year maximized our application for funds. And from that have done dozens of wildfire fuel management programs throughout the District of North Vancouver in places we deem to be high risk for our community. And so it's very frustrating to hear them pulling back from that side of the program. I understand, and it makes sense to me that you have to look at the province-wide risk. But if you want municipalities, who are the largest land managers around, other than the province directly, I think that you should keep an avenue on the table for municipalities to do wildfire fuel management programs in their community. And so I find that frustrating. I'd be happy to send the letter to the province outlining that concern. And I appreciate the update on all of the climate updates that we've been seeing in the District of North Vancouver based on the long-term decision of our community to try to reduce our carbon impact. Councillor Back.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I'll start my comments by saying I agree completely with the recommendation to send the letter. I'm also very concerned about the wildfire fuel reduction funding being cut. I think this is not the time to be doing that when you see the sort of wildfire risks that are currently affecting communities across our province. But just want to start by saying I'm supportive. First of all, thank you for the report. I think there's lots of good news in here that we're heading on the right track. Seeing that community emissions are down 21% since 2007, and corporate emissions are down 31% since 2011. Also appreciate that the report really shows that climate action is no longer something that stands alone, separate from everything else that we do. It really touches everything we do as a municipality. At the same time, our target is 45% reduction in community emissions by 2030, and we're at 21%. My question is whether we're on track, and if not, where's the greatest opportunity to accelerate our progress with community emissions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Through the mayor to Councillor Back, I would say we're challenged to meet the 2030 target, but we are making significant progress. And I think the importance is continuing to kind of emphasize replicating that progress that we've been made, continuing forward and focusing on kind of the goal of net zero by 2050. But it is a challenge ahead for sure.
I just want to commend our staff for all the work, in getting us to where we are today. And I think we want to, as you say, continue to accelerate some of the things we're already doing. I want to say some of the positive changes that can happen when you get a heat pump, especially on a day like today when it's like 30 degrees just about outside. And hopefully we can see more people getting involved in changing, electrifying in ways like that. But yeah, overall, I'm pleased with the update and where we're heading. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor Little. Yeah, it's very disappointing that our provincial government is unable to continue to support those programs that really were so fundamental at one time to the platform of this particular party over the years. I'm certain the Greens have something to say about it, and it's a sad day given what we watch in our own country in regards to the level of fire that we're experiencing in Ontario and indeed in our own province. I'm glad that we're going to write a letter, although I don't know if it will make a difference. I did go on the website and it seems that it's just up and running and sounding like everything's in place. There doesn't seem to be any indication of a change, but obviously we've heard differently. And we did recently have a presentation by Metro Vancouver Zero Waste, Paul Henderson, in regards to diversion rates, and that we're a leader at Metro Vancouver in North America in regards to diversion rates. In regards to deconstruction of homes, do we have any data on that?
Through your worship, we don't, Adam and I don't have that data at our fingertips, but we can certainly bring forward that information for council's consideration. I think it was 65,000.
Yeah, 65,000 kilograms of wood waste diverted since the program, or since the bylaw was approved a couple years ago.
Yeah,
2023.
In terms of the number of homes and that, we can bring forward more information.
Yeah, I think it's I think we need to be updated on a regular basis in regards to our climate targets and where we are to keep us to point. We haven't had a presentation like this in some time. I know I've got the workshop that we're going to talk about our natural environment, and I guess I'm a bit disappointed that the natural environment didn't make it onto the slides in regards to loss of trees, impacts to our storm, impacts to creeks, in regards to development. I think that those are all really important things. Everything's connected. Everything's tied together. And I think we, some sort of regular information report or update for the community to see how we're measuring reductions in our greenhouse, how we come to those numbers. A lot of it has to do with electric vehicles. We've got, alternative forms of transportation. But again, those are cyclical throughout the year, seasonal mainly. So how are we reaching these numbers? How are those targets? How can we communicate those targets and where we are with them to the community in an easy way? And how can we regularly have a discussion about, changes that are positive and changes that are negative? So I look forward to creating those opportunities in with the new council going forward, and having these targets discussed more frequently within the community, so we can all be a lot more aware. You mentioned the repair cafes, and I know I had reached out to Metro as a member of the Zero Waste Committee for Metro Vancouver to bring forward programs to our local library. And I'm just wondering if we have information about any of those programs that have been expanded. They're very popular in Coquitlam, Mayor Little, and I know that we've got lots of retired engineers and contractors in the district, and I'm sure they'd be happy to help fix some things and repair them so we don't have to throw them in the landfill. The district has one of the highest diversion rates within the region, and I'm sure if people had an ability to be able to repair things rather than to recycle and buy new, they would be interested in that. So do we have any information on those expanded programs?
Through your worship to Councillor Murray, we are aware that the library has been working closely with members of our team to put on an additional repair cafe. I don't have those details at my fingertips. And I just wanted to go back to the comments about there's a table in the report that just outlines how climate action on table 1 on page 8 of the report really spreads across some of the different service areas. And this was mentioned by a couple members of council this evening. And, I mentioned for the corporate emissions, how it really was those reductions are due to the dedicated efforts of many staff in many departments. And really the same is true for our community emissions reductions. And it's really about efforts of staff, many partners in the community, other levels of government, and really our residents and our businesses that are really contributing to that reduction that we're seeing, as well as importantly, some of these provincial funding programs that, as I mentioned, they have been in place for over a decade, these programs, and particularly the local government climate action program is really something that has been, foundational really in terms of driving climate action at the local level in BC over the past 15 years. So pleased to be able to bring that information forward to council so that we can have an opportunity to provide that feedback to the province.
I'll take my other 2 minutes, Mayor Little, if I'm able. We talk about obviously we're sitting in a place we haven't sat in for a long time when we have no snowpack in the backcountry, and the challenges of electrification, increased electrification. Obviously, the federal government's paused the electric vehicle targets, bless you, Mayor Little, and and they're sadly our climate right now and what we're experiencing, it's July-uary. It's usually June-uary, but July-uary, the weather has been, very unusual from past years. So, those challenges of electrification, there were some reports that we could face blackouts, as California did at one time. And so how do we prepare for that?
Yeah, through your worship, we're really working very closely with BC Hydro. We're following their IRP process. And one of the things I think that we showed earlier in the chart is just the growth, the really explosive growth actually that we're seeing of solar, where we have improved resilience really at a local level, where the technology with solar and with battery is really, really improved in the last 10 years and particularly in the last 5 years. And so there are opportunities. Hydro has also issued new calls for power, which of course we are following closely, and we're also working very closely with BC Hydro to improve the distribution grid and to facilitate projects to enable electrification within the municipality.
And we did have those presentations to Metro Vancouver's board in regards to Hydro's concern is that the ramping up of alternative forms of energy did not happen as quickly as it should have. And I think the federal government is recognizing, the challenges of that. And obviously there's some discussions in regards to expansion of maybe directions that we didn't think we were going to have to go in regards to expansion of oil and pipelines. We had a discussion a week ago in regards to the replanting of our forests and the impact of development on our forests. And so I look forward to that workshop that we're going to have with the new council if I'm returned to this table. And what that replanting and urban forestry within our urban centers means. Trees not only provide shade, as you've referenced in your report, but they also soak up an enormous amount of water. And I would hope that we will have a significant discussion about stormwater and how stormwater impacts our communities, and some of the unintended consequences of driving mass amounts of water into a storm pipe rather than into the groundwater and the water table where it belongs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a couple of questions. One of them is when I'm looking at the energy transition, the solar did almost double. It's really taken off between 2024 and 25. I think possibly that the EV charging dropped from 24 levels of 253 to 25 levels of 202.
Thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Forbes. I believe part of that was related to the cessation of rebates for EV charging at that time.
Yeah.
But I'd still note the comparison back to 2019, and it is still quite significant, but I think that was due to some changes in rebates.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we need to write another letter, because the other thing I was going to mention from here, which is supposedly complete, is lobby federal provincial government for improvements in fuel efficiency standards for gasoline powered vehicles and zero emission vehicle standards. So maybe we need to do another letter to them. We're on a letter writing spree. Also, I just wanted to ask, do you have anything in mind? Like it hasn't even been started, but to encourage efforts to electrify port operations.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything? Can you tell me anything more about that?
Yeah, so thank you for the question through the mayor to Councillor Forbes. We do meet based on kind of relative projects with the port. They have released a climate action plan. I believe it was recent, just last year, and it does include an accounting for emissions related to operations and actions related to reducing those emissions through electrification. So we're also meeting with them recently on the hazard resilience and vulnerability assessments. We do partnered with them on the sea level rise strategy in 2021. So we do have ongoing conversations based on various projects. It was good to see that they have accounted for those emissions and that there's some actions there on electrifying their operations. So we'll continue to encourage them.
So you do have a chance to meet with them on a somewhat regular basis?
Yeah, I would say so.
Good.
And just to add to that, I think the real focus for us over the past 5 years or so has really been primarily on our operations and on things that we directly control, and that's probably why the port one was not prioritized as much. But we're very, very, very pleased to see that they are moving in that general direction. And just with regard to the EV numbers that we talked about before, I believe that the federal EV rebates are now reinstated, if I'm not mistaken. So
I heard something about that too, but I don't know if it's at the same levels or.
So I believe it's a $5,000 rebate for an EV and a $2,500 rebate for a plug-in.
Yep.
So we'll probably expect to see those numbers
going up
continue to increase for anyone that owns an electric vehicle and knows that it costs less to operate.
I hear that, 10 cents to go wherever they need to go. And the one other question I have, which I'm really interested in, is to establish an urban forestry management strategy that protects and enhances the district's urban forest for years to come. And it appears like it's sort of halfway through being done. It's in progress.
It's definitely.
Can you tell me about that?
Through your worship to Councillor Forbes, yes, it's definitely in progress. Staff have begun the scoping for that work, and a lot of enthusiasm, I think, on the part of staff for advancing that work, and we look forward to bringing forward more information for council on that in the future.
Do you expect that to come forward in the fall or next year?
There's quite a lot of technical work involved, so there'll likely be something next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. And I just want to thank you for the report. It was very informative, and I love looking at graphs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much for your work and for the report. Thank you to my council colleagues for their comments. Let me add my voice of disappointment to the decision to cut the local government climate action program and the Fire Smart fire fuel reduction program. I mean, it is shocking and very disappointing that this is where we're at this time with this government. Turning our mind to net zero and 2050 and reducing greenhouse gas emissions and tying a couple of ideas together. I look out at the cut westbound and see all those cars sitting there idling and fumes coming out, which brings to mind rapid transit investments and the benefits that could be had there. Now, if government fund their local government climate action program, they're probably a long ways from funding rapid transit. But if we look forward to 2050, perhaps that's a deadline that we can, or a timeframe that we can work within. And I guess I just encourage us to keep these ideas together, that the transportation solutions in the end will provide greenhouse gas emissions reductions at the same time. And thank you for your work.
Councillor Hanson. Councillor Ma.
Thank you for your work on this. Just want to add a little bit. I recently had a fire smart home assessment done at my place. Our fire department has a lot of talented people. And I just want to give a shout out to Conrad, who conducted my assessment. I learned a lot. I thought, okay, we live in a forest. How do I, minimize any impact on house if there's interface fire? So for people that haven't done it, I encourage you to do it. Hopefully it will be around because it's a free service, and for a community like ours where we're surrounded by trees, it's a must-have. So I appreciate the work that's being done, and I hope the provincial government hears our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Back.
Thanks, Mayor Little. Just to follow up on the idea of how we share out progress, just on where we're at on some of these numbers. I'm just wondering if we are looking towards moving towards a little bit of more of a dashboard or something more visual that will just be a clear way to communicate our progress on climate action to the community. And also in looking at this page on the website, I'm just reminded at how strong our community energy and emissions plan is. There's so much good information in there, and it's been a while since I've gone through and read it all. But I know in the last term of council, we did have a couple of workshops, I believe, on it. There were some of the best our staff and some of the best consultants involved in creating that plan. So I think any way that we could help kind of bring that I know it's on our website, but if we could bring that to life a little bit more, perhaps make it more of an interactive webpage, I think it might be more interesting for people to really get into, because there's, again, just so much good information in there. But when you're downloading a 33 megabyte PDF, it doesn't look as exciting as it should be. So just some thought to how we might want to look at bringing that to life.
Thank you, Councillor. I know it's not the focus of the discussion, but I went down the rabbit hole recently of the solar production side, and people probably don't know, but when California has done a massive switch to solar production throughout the state, and they produce so much solar that it's actually damaging their system. And so if it's not being used, you have to load shed in some way that additional electricity that you have in the system. And so they pay the province of BC 12 cents per kilowatt hour for us to take their electricity off of their system. And then we also sell them power from the hydro system when they have shortages, because there's nowhere to store megawatts of power between the time they get it in the middle of the day till the time they need it, which is the off-peak period. And so I asked BC Hydro's board about this question about how much more solar we could produce before we're in the same situation versus producing hard to hydro infrastructure. And they said, well, there's still some room for us to go, but we are approaching that point where we'll have the same load shedding problem, and then we can no longer take advantage of the subsidized energy coming out of California because we'll have to pay to load shed as well. So it's not something people talk about that much, but it's a very real concern for the board of BC Hydro. And, obviously they're very happy to have sites up and running and producing, but the solar is a challenge when it comes to load shedding. And so it's been a great option and alternative, but things that are 24 hours like wind and tidal and hydro and nuclear even, are actually much easier to manage peak and off-peak demands than solar because you don't have control over when the sun decides to shine. So anyway, I just thought it was interesting part of this piece of solar, but we're obviously not producers, but it was an interesting rabbit hole to go down. But thank you very much for your presentation today. Okay, Council, I see no further speakers prepared to call the question on the motion. All in favor? Contrary minded, motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 811. This is engagement with young people. It's a council initiated report from Councillor Ma. Councillor Ma, we'll go to you for a motion and we'll seek a seconder right away. Yeah, with your microphone on this time. There we go. I got it. Yeah.
The recommendation is for council to accept this report.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the matter? Thank you. Councillor Back. Okay, Councillor Ma, your comments, please.
Thank you. This for a little background. Councillor Back and I have discussed and met with Councillor Valente and Councillor McElroy of the City of Northland. We're not a formal committee, but rather an ad hoc group that wants to find ways to engage with young people in both the city and the district. The key desire is to create an informal environment for voices and concerns of young people to be heard. On that note, I just want to make a quick verbal edit on the report, and we'll confirm this in writing later, but if we can replace any occurrence of initiative with ad hoc activities, that would be appreciated. So these ad hoc activities are intended to achieve three general outcomes. One, foster a better understanding of local government and civic processes among young people, is similar to the earlier delegation by civics. The second desired outcome is to encourage increased participation in civic activities. This could be seen by having more young people provide feedback on municipal projects and issues, attend council meetings, or participating in public input opportunities, maybe even volunteer on municipal committees, and hopefully, down the road, maybe they'll consider careers in local government. The final key outcome would be to improve councillors' understanding of the issues, challenges, aspirations, and priorities of young people living, studying, working, and recreating on the North Shore. I know that many members of this council engage with young people in various ways. As mentioned earlier, a few of us during the last election campaign would, go to schools and talk about things. So we are engaging with young people, and hopefully they see the value of and value our democracy that we have. So there's no motion or decision to be made by council. Instead, this information report is just that, to provide information to my fellow council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. Councillor Pope, or sorry, Councillor Back was the seconder, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Little. thanks Councillor Ma for leading some conversations around engagement with younger youth and younger adults. I'm glad you replaced the word initiative because I think it is conversations at this point, which are really valuable. And you've been out meeting with, say, other members of council and people in the community. I look forward to seeing where this could lead. I think there might be, something more formal needed to really move this forward. And I know you're just kind of gathering background information with many of the organizations that serve youth and younger adults in our community, which I think is great work. But I look forward to seeing how we can advance this. And maybe that's some kind of a roundtable, more formal roundtable with all of council, with the next council. There's so much great work that's happening out there by various organizations, and I feel like we could play more of a leadership role in supporting that. We heard from Civics tonight and the work that they do with the student vote, and sounds like some other really valuable programs. So I think they could be involved in those conversations as well. But I think there's never been a better time to try to engage younger people and in local government. So thanks for the start you've made.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Councillor Pope.
Thank you for this work, Councillor Ma. I believe youth engagement is essential to good governance. And as we heard from the civics group tonight, that voter turnout is lowest among youth. In fact, it's so important that when the Youth Forum group came before us a few months ago with their findings and recommendations, I submitted a motion based directly on their input. The idea was to hire a part-time temporary communications officer whose sole job would be increasing youth engagement. Simple, effective action that could have accomplished two things: increased youth interest in civic affairs, and with an election coming up, possibly encourage more young people to vote. But the motion was not permitted onto the agenda. I revised it, brought forward a second version. It was also not permitted, even after outside legal counsel retained at public expense reviewed the question. My understanding of that advice was that the motion could not proceed My understanding of that advice was that the motion could proceed appropriately with reasonable guardrails in place due to the Election Act. And I just want that on the record because it reflects a frustration I face constantly in trying to move from words to action here on council. And I'll say plainly, we already know what some of the solutions are, including hiring someone young enough to actually speak the language of the people we're trying to reach. So more broadly, I think the district has a culture of studying, exploring, holding meetings, and engaging. And too often, that's where it ends. We produce reports, we build relationships, we gather input, and then the concrete action that would actually make this community better gets deferred, delayed, or simply doesn't happen. Or at best, a pilot project. We'll study it for another year. So if we're serious about youth engagement, I'd like to see us break that pattern. However, I'm not even sure what's before us tonight. It has the appearance of doing something about youth engagement, but there's no ask attached, no deliverable, no staff direction, no budget line, no date to report back with recommendations. So I'm kind of at a loss. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll use my time to respond a little bit since you've decided to make the matter a public matter. Yes, the mayor's office, the chief executive, the chief administrative officer, and the head of corporate services, the clerk, have the ability to restrict a council member's motion if they believe that it is either not lawful or if it is damaging to the municipality in some way, shape, or form. And so the decision was made to reject the motion simply because of the word election. When you're in the election period, the chief election officer is the one that is in charge of administering the election, not the politicians. We've handed over the responsibility to the chief election officer. The motion was a workaround. It was trying to force the chief election officer to use certain youth representatives in the community. And so I find your characterization of the situation unfair. And my advice to you at the time, which I have well documented, is that if you removed the one word, I'd approve the motion. All of the other things that were in the motion about youth in our community, about everything else. And so you decided to go and revise it. Your revision still had the word election in it, still had the workaround to the chief election officer, trying to compel comms to do youth-focused messages during an election outside of the jurisdiction of the chief election officer. That's why it was rejected. And that's was easy enough to overcome by simply removing reference to the word election. I find this frustrating approach to it. You ask a motion. I'm happy to give you response that I think actually supports your motion. I'd love to be able to support it going forward. But unfortunately, you're again mischaracterizing the both the proposal and our response to it. Had you made a change in line with what was recommended, then we would be having a discussion about your motion as well. On Councillor Ma's motion, I'm happy to support initiatives generally that engage youth in our community. I think that, you know, in my role, I think I get a little bit more of a regular involvement in this with the civics program within the schools, teaching kids about government in grade 4, and then again with some of the high school students. And some of the other groups that have been identified on here, I've been very happy to be involved with over the years and would love to see further involvement and would love to see other members of council involved in them. I definitely engaged with Brockton School, the North Shore Youth Civic Forum. A number of councils have participated in those events when they've taken place in our council chamber. We've supported mock council meetings that have taken place here. The Parkgate Youth Program, yes, I've gone to Dungeons and Dragons Day at in the youth group and other things, and so there are a lot of great things going on in our community, and it would be great to see even further participation from both our council and our organization in supporting youth generally in our community. Thank you for raising the matter, Councillor Ma. Would anybody else like to speak on the matter? Councillor Ma, second time.
During my 3.5 years on this council, I tried to work with every member of this council. It was a small thing, but I actually took pride in knowing that I attended meetings with external groups with every member of this council. I don't know if anyone else can say that, and I'm not trying to make this competitive, but for me, it was important for me to try to work with everyone. That has unfortunately proven more difficult recently. This motion was brought forward to share with this council what I was doing. I've engaged Councillor Back and other councillors because I thought they had similar interests, and I will say values in trying to engage youth. From my perspective, I know Councillor Back brought a motion forward to have a formal committee, and that was our youth committee. That was actually, I believe, approved by this council, but it didn't make it past the AOC. And I will support this if it comes back. Right now, I'm just looking ways to make sure that younger people in our communities feel that they can go to someone to talk about their concerns, whether it's about a connector or they want another bike lane or they want more soccer fields. My job is to talk to everyone. I may not agree with everyone and they may not agree with my position, but I'm there to listen. And I did not intend to have to say this tonight, but I just hope that, going forward, there's a few more months before the next election and it's going to get crazy. I think that, but I just hope that we can all work together. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments, Councillor Ma. I see no further speakers. Prepared to call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Thank you very much, Council. Next item up for discussion is item 812. This is again a council initiated report from myself. It is a report to seek community opinion on Rice Lake Connector project. The recommendation is there and I'll be supportive of the recommendation. Is there a seconder? Second by Councillor Ma for discussion. So my comments on the matter, there's no malice or in this process. I'm not here to try to say somebody's right or somebody's wrong. I just recognize that we have a very major problem with traffic issues in our community, and we have to be willing to put forward some solutions on our own property. We have done a lot to try to be a part of the solution. We've widened Keith Road, we widened the Main Street corridor, two of the main crossings over Lynn Creek. We've been supportive of the rapid bus program expansion to try to get transit alternatives to the area. Councillor Hanson raised a motion for the widening of the cut, creation of a collector distributor road down the side of the cut in order to try to be able to move people through the corridor without getting caught in the traffic. We have looked at what's called the Amherst Spicer connection. This is a connection below the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge. It's largely a connection over the Seymour River, but it's again to get some alternatives through the area. Our council has done a lot to review different projects to improve transportation on the North Shore. I was part of a group called the INSTEP, the Integrated North Shore Transportation Planning Project, which came up with 13 different recommendations for trying to improve transportation across the North Shore. Unfortunately, we keep running into some similar roadblocks. People can't see a change in use for the land in those areas. They like it the way it is right now. And also, they generally include a partner, which is usually the provincial government. And I have to tell you, the provincial government has been underfunding their transit commitments routinely, while we will, with the region's support, not the province's support, while we will be able to deliver an extended rapid bus system. So in September, that's going to extend all the way from Park Royal all the way out to Metrotown with frequent and reliable transit on the R2 service. But the federal and provincial funds for the bus rapid transit, which is the next stage where you produce lanes, dedicated lanes and spaces, that is underfunded now to the point that it's unlikely to be approved in 2028 by the time that we need to be able to get that funded. And I'm the chair of finance for TransLink. I have pretty good idea where the federal and provincial grants are going to be going within TransLink, and I don't see us getting the bus rapid transit in that short-term period. And so our council has been very active in trying to find different solutions, but we have had this challenge that the provincial government has no interest in expanding the highway. They believe that there's 40 years of life left on the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, even though our engineers think there's 20 years of life left. And so they have no intention of medium or even a long-term replacement and upgrade of the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, which has caused us to have these kinds of discussions where we look at alternatives that we can deliver on our own land. And the suggestion is meant to start a conversation about what we could do with our own land. That's why it's not specific, it's general. It's talking about a crossing on Lynn Creek, specifically an upper levels crossing. But I got to tell you, it's a necessary conversation that we have to have. I'm old enough to remember some of the last steps and conversations in this, which was the Mont Royal Avenue connector and the Braemar Dempsey connector. I'm going to go carry on. And I lived 2 blocks away from the Mont Royal connector in the 90s when they were proposing building the Mont Royal connector, which connects up. There didn't used to be a connection between Delbrook and Upper Lonsdale without going over Prospect Road and Duval and Valencia, like a whole bunch of streets in the upper areas, and there wasn't a direct connection. And so it was agreed that we would connect it. It was agreed that we would connect the Braemar-Dempsey. Nobody locally supported either of those 2 projects. They thought it was going to bring too much busyness to their neighborhoods. They thought it was going to be awful. It was going to make them all awful streets. And the reality is now that they're in and up and running, people love them and use them to be able to get connected through the community without having to come back down to the highway. Which is something that the central and eastern part of the District of North Vancouver doesn't benefit from, but the western part does. They don't get caught in Highway 1 because they have alternatives to get east and west through those areas, whereas the central and eastern part of the district still get caught. I know a lot of people are very sensitive to this issue out of the gate. I want to be very respectful that this is a beloved trail area. This is a beloved green space. I don't deny that at all. I just think that with 160,000 daily trips over the Ironworkers Memorial Bridge, tens of thousands of people stuck in the traffic every single day, we have to start looking at options. I'm not going to characterize it as a solution. I don't think it will ever be a significant amount of traffic like Braemar-Dempsey isn't typically busy and Mont Royal Avenue connector isn't typically busy. But in an emergency, it gives a backdoor exit to the Inter-River community, to the Capilano University community, and it does provide us some alternatives for accessing those space for emergency purposes. And so I think there's value in having the discussion. I know there's a lot of people who don't want us to have the discussion, but I just hope that people will treat with the matter with respect and engage in the conversation politely. The seconder on the matter is Councillor Ma.
Okay, Your Worship, let's have that discussion.
Okay.
When I first read this report, I understood the general desire to use a referendum question to get feedback on the idea of a connector over Lynn Creek. The overall goals, as I understood them, would be to increase the ability of people to get around the district more efficiently and to address the traffic and congestion challenges that residents on the North Shore experience on a regular basis. However, always a big however. Over the past couple of days, I've spoken with many members of the community and learned a bit more about the history of the area and the 2 existing connectors. Thank you to the many members of the community who were around 30 years and shared their knowledge with me. Although I've been to Rice Lake and the Seymour Demonstration Forest many times with my family and friends for recreational purposes, I had questions about this proposal. To have a better understanding of the impact, I went to the area around Pipeline Bridge with friends who grew up in the North Shore, as well as who live nearby. I also drove along Dempsey, East Braemar, and further to Mount Royal to get a sense of the roads that would be involved in this proposal. I spoke yesterday with a local transportation professional who is now retired, but was an expert in many municipal projects. Earlier this morning, I went to the District Operations Center where they have a large map on the wall in the meeting room. I was accompanied by a longtime resident who has extensive experience in efforts to preserve our forests in Cove and Mountain. It was very helpful for me to get a bird's eye view of the area, which would be affected by a connector over Lynn Creek. I want to let people know that some of us on council try to understand issues that are before us, regardless of who initiated them or whether we agree or not. We owe it to the residents of the district to not get into petty politics and look for ways to make our community better. This council is currently looking at various strategies to address mobility issues. We're looking at increasing public transit service on the North Shore, creating safer options for active transportation. And yes, I will say bike lanes. We're also doing lane realignment, and some of those changes are being planned for the south end of Mountain Highway. Our transportation engineers are smart people. They're trying to solve the problem for us, but there's always consequences. Traffic is an issue on the North Shore. To me, it's the #1 issue. However, the impacts on our parks and forested areas is too high a price to pay to build a new connector over Lynn Creek. As many people know, staff are working on a community transportation plan. We need to support Mayor Mike Little in his efforts at TransLink. We also need to continue to work and engage with the provincial government to help fund replacement infrastructure that we badly need on the North Shore. Thank you.
You, Councillor Ma. Councillor Murray.
Well, to say that I was shocked and very disappointed, Mayor Little, when I opened up my agenda on Wednesday morning and saw this most massive, significant issue on the last agenda of before our summer break, and the last item at 9:30 at night was an understatement. I was stunned. And unshocked that something this big could be characterized as a simple question in the ballot during the election. And I had to try to figure out, why would you bring this forward? Were you trying to drive people to the ballot? Did you really believe that an issue like this in our community would ever be supported? Did you believe that the information required to inform a referendum question such as this did not need significant discussion and planning in order for it to even be considered on a ballot? I felt like we as a council and as a community deserve those answers to those questions. And I was very surprised that the questions weren't asked before the last meeting. I had no idea that this was something that you were considering or thinking. You made mention of it a couple of weeks ago, and I thought you were kidding. You had mentioned a connection, and my response was, "Oh, like that was ever going to happen," and then it did. It was actually a reality on our agenda, and I've never said that to you before. I've never said that I've been disappointed, and I was disappointed. So, of course, I had to let the community know, and posting on no less than 12 Facebook pages on Saturday morning, you've heard from the community. And I told them, most of them, that they didn't need to come. The ones that I spoke to, you didn't have to come tonight, because I was certain that this council was not going to support this question. Thank you for the ones that did show up. But I was convinced that the response on social media and the dozens and dozens of letters that we have been receiving since I posted on Thursday on my own page, but then extended it on multiple pages that I'm part of, the community has spoken loud and clear. They are not interested in driving a road and or bridge through Lynn Canyon, not now, not ever. It is not sustainable. It is not a solution to the problem. And before we exhaust every single option at our disposal, this community will not support a discussion in regards to impacting the pristine wilderness that we hold so dear and the reason that we live here. Over 20,000 signatures have been garnered over the decades to protect both Lynn Canyon and Cove Mountain Forest. Those plans way back when were built on mass development in the Seymour and connecting the Hyannis Connector. It is the reason why Safeway exists on Mount Seymour Parkway. They believe that the Cove and Mountain Forest would be developed, and we put that to bed 30 years ago in 1997 when the council of the day that I was a member of rezoned those lands to park. I'll take my other 2 minutes, and protected them in perpetuity to the community. Driving traffic down Lillooet Road, and you can ask the people that live in Inter River, when there's a jam on the bridge, they can't get out of their driveways. So I'm not sure how anybody crossing Lynn Canyon and heading down Lillooet would be able to get to the bridge. Councillor Hanson has brought a report forward in the past in regards to the original plan for the interchange, which was to connect the Lynn Valley merge into the Mountain Highway merge. And if we are even considering this void of any provincial or federal funding, it sounds like this is a plan about, our own land and what we could do with it. If given the province doesn't even have money to deal with fire smart programs, I'm sure they don't have money to deal with this, but it would be a bargain to connect that connector compared to the impact and financial constraints of this project. I know something about a referendum because in 1996, there was a referendum on the ballot when I was elected. It was to borrow $25 million so we could build 5 pieces of infrastructure. Amazingly, we could build a library and a rec center and all sorts of things, a field. The amount of planning and work and discussion that went into that ballot item, staff recognizing that if we wanted to borrow money for Parkgate Community Center, we couldn't just ask the electorates to support something in Seymour. We had to spread it across the municipality. And so that's what we did. The Sport Council spent weeks and weeks lobbying the community through sports teams. And there were information packages put out in order to educate the electorate on what they were going to be asked to do during the election. This is simply asking staff to come back with a question with no analysis, with no concept of finances, with no environmental impact assessments. Even all of that is far beyond the reaches of this municipality currently because of our financial situation. And the bottom line is the community, no matter what, would never, ever support driving a road through Lynn Canyon Park and out into the Lower Seymour Demonstration Forest, not to mention Metro Vancouver. So Mayor Little, I hope that in future with massive issues like this, you give consideration to coming forward to council and discuss these matters before we put it on the last agenda, the last item of the reports before the summer break.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hanson.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you to council members who have spoken. Mayor, I appreciate your good intentions in this motion. Traffic is indeed a major issue, and we're all thinking about it and thinking about ways of addressing it. However, I will not be supporting this motion. I do not believe the community supports building a road in this location, period. I don't think you need to go to referendum on that. I think that one is straightforward from my point of view. I don't think we need to solicit community opinion on a matter that, from my point of view, is very obvious that there simply isn't support. And when we talk about these community opinions, I don't think it's appropriate for us to introduce very complicated questions without appropriate groundwork being laid, discussion, the issues being brought forward and considered. I mean, from my point of view, the fireworks motion was one where it made sense. That's where it makes sense. The matter had been thoroughly debated. It had gone back and forth with very close votes over a long period of time. We couldn't get to consensus. Everyone knows what we're talking about, fireworks. Do we want them to go off all night long, causing mental health problems? Some people say yes, some people say no. Let's put it out to the community. Everyone, it's simple, it's clear. This is a very complicated question. There's a lot involved. If we're going to be putting a matter like this to community opinion, in my view, there's a lot more work to be done. There's a lot more groundwork to be laid. My suggestion, if you want to put a bridge across the Lynn and you have this idea for addressing traffic, raise it in the upcoming election. We can talk about it in all candidates' meetings. We can talk about it. The public can get engaged. And perhaps if we continue to have interest in it, we can contemplate. And if it seems to be something where the community is actually divided, where council's divided and the community is divided, but we can't quite get to a consensus, perhaps we can consider a community opinion. But I would think that's to be a long ways off. And coming back where I started, I don't think community is divided on this issue. I think this one's very clear. So I'll leave it at that, but I do appreciate your good intentions in trying to address traffic issues on the North Shore.
Thank you, Councillor Hanson. Councillor Beck.
Thank you, Mayor Little. I thought we were getting into the fireworks debate again. Just getting a little bit agitated. Well, I guess if the goal, Mayor Little, is to drive voter turnout, then putting a controversial new road through a park might just do it. I can understand the frustration with traffic in this area and throughout our community. We talk about it every day with residents. But I do not believe in any way, shape, or form that a new road connection through this area is any kind of a solution. I understand Facebook had a lot to say about this. I didn't check the comments, but I knew before that this was the wrong direction as soon as I sort of thought more about the idea. This is important green space. I live, not that it matters, but I live very close to this area. I use this connection all the time. And there's just no part of me that can envision that ever being a road. I've consistently been skeptical of addressing congestion by simply adding more road capacity. Additional lanes create induced demand. That makes it easier for people to drive. Those roads just fill up. That's basic theory, induced demand. I think our focus always needs to be on moving more people, not simply more vehicles, better transit, active transportation, and improving the efficiency and resilience of the transportation network that we already have. And we also need to look at the larger regional challenge. The Ironworkers Memorial Bridge and its approaches are the real constraint, I believe, in our system. And I'd rather see the focus continue to be put there on a unified front to advocate for future replacement of that crossing with significantly improved transit capacity. But yeah, I can't support this, but thank you for allowing me to share that opinion.
Thank you, Councillor Beck. Councillor Pope.
Thank you very much. I agree that North Van needs improved east-west connectivity, but this is not a solution. There is no evidence before us that constructing a new road through the Rice Lake and Lynn Creek area would meaningfully reduce congestion in local neighborhoods. In fact, it risks simply redistributing traffic, creating bottlenecks and increasing traffic through neighborhoods without addressing the regional causes of congestion. What we do know is that this proposal would require significant impacts on one of the district's most environmentally sensitive and cherished natural areas. The mature forests, wildlife habitat, and ecological integrity of the corridor are not assets we should ever sacrifice for cars. I support improving east-west mobility, but I do not support asking residents to endorse this proposal. It threatens an irreplaceable natural area and is unlikely to solve the congestion problem it is intended to address. And so for those reasons, I'm not supporting either. Thank you.
Councillor Pope. Councillor Forbes.
Thank you, Worship. I'm in agreement with all of the comments around the table except yours. But I'm not going that route tonight. I wanted just a little bit of history about what has happened with that. So I want to speak about how the long history of Lynn Canyon and the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve should guide our decision on proposals like the Rice Lake Connector and any suggestion of a road through Lynn Canyon. These areas have been shaped by more than a century of deliberate choices that consistently prioritized conservation, watershed protection, and keeping these landscapes natural and road-free. Historical foundations that shape today's responsibilities. When logging arrived in the late 1800s, both Lynn Valley and the Seymour watershed were heavily cut, and the landscape was transformed by industrial activity. But in 1912, the district made a defining decision. It purchased Lynn Canyon specifically to protect it from further development. Over the decades, the district expanded the park and maintained it as a car-free natural sanctuary, even as the rest of the North Shore urbanized. The creation of the Ecology Center in 1971 reinforced the Lynn Canyon was meant to be a place of education, conservation, and ecological stewardship. Similarly, Seymour Watershed evolved into one of the region's most important drinking water sources. Metro Vancouver established the Lower Seymour Conservation Reserve to protect water quality and wildlife habitat. Public access was allowed, but always under strict controls with a clear mandate: conservation first, recreation second, and motorized access last. These historical choices created the landscapes we value today. Lynn Canyon as a protected road-free park and the LSCR as a conservation reserve with controlled access. They also established a pattern of decision-making that consistently rejects high-impact infrastructure in these areas. When we consider modern proposals like a road through Lynn Canyon or a connector that increases access through Rice Lake, we need to recognize that these ideas run against more than a century of policy direction. A road through Lynn Canyon would not just be a transportation decision, it would be a reversal of the district's longstanding commitment to keep this canyon natural, quiet, and protected. Even the Rice Lake connector, while far less impactful than a road, still raises questions about increased visitation, ecological pressure, and proximity to the watershed. The canyon's steep terrain, sensitive systems, and adjacency to drinking water infrastructure are not incidental challenges. They are the very reason these areas were protected in the first place. Our current policies, the climate action strategy, the biodiversity strategy, and the parks naturalization strategy, all build on this historical foundation. They reinforce the idea that Lynn Canyon and the LSCR are places where conservation comes first. A road through Lynn Canyon would conflict with every one of these policies. Even the Rice Lake connector must be evaluated carefully to ensure it does not undermine watershed protection or ecological integrity. The question is not simply whether these projects are technically feasible. It is whether they align with the values and commitments that have shaped these landscapes for over a century. In summary, the history of Lynn Canyon and the LSCR shows a clear and consistent pattern. When faced with choices between development and conservation, this community has repeatedly chosen protection. As council considers proposals like the Rice Lake connector or any road through Lynn Canyon, I would encourage you to honor the legacy and ensure that today's decisions reflect the stewardship principles that have guided this district for more than 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Councillor Forbes. Councillor Ma, second time.
I want to thank my fellow councillors for everything that they said on this important issue. And notwithstanding some of the earlier unanimous adoptions by this council, I also want to thank Mayor Little here. You've actually brought this council together on this very emotional issue, so thank you for that.
Do my part. Thank you, Councillor Ma. I appreciate it. And you know what I will say? A little bit of humor goes a long way in tense subjects, and so I appreciate people's commentary on the matter. I didn't know the subject of my report was going to bring us together so in that regard. No, I will just say I look forward to council suggestions on how to address our traffic issues going forward. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried, or motion is defeated. Apologies. Didn't catch your vote. You were opposed? Yeah. Okay. So do you want to count or you want to just
6-1.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Council, we have. There was something I wanted to follow up with you with the clerk on, which was we did refer the Roche Point matter to a public hearing, and I normally immediately ask the question, when is that coming back for public hearing?
Thank you. Through your worship, that's tentatively scheduled for September 8th. I do note we do have one more item on the agenda.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so that public hearing, if you're interested in that public hearing, which is referring to the Roche Point Park, September 8th is our tentative date. If you wait until the week before, you'll be able to see whether that's confirmed in our package or not. There was an addenda item 813, which is an amendment to Councillor Ma's resolution regarding request for public inquiry regarding North Shore wastewater treatment plant by Inspector of Municipalities. The amendment is largely to recognize that we may have referred to the act incorrectly, and so we've changed it. We've taken out the language that was actually going to stop the action from taking place, and so this is seeking council support for the amended version.
So moved.
I'm going to look to Councillor Ma for moving, and it's his report. Councillor Mary, second. Councillor Ma, any additional comments on the matter?
No, I'm done with my humor for tonight.
Appreciate it. Councillor, okay. Any other member of council wishing comment? Prepared to call the question. All in favor? Contrary minded? Motion is carried. Council, we do have an opportunity for reports. Would anybody like to make a report at this time? Councillor Miri?
I just wanted to report on, I just attended the 100th birthday of the homestead. The Gillis family in 1923 came to Deep Cove down on Harris Avenue and built a little log cabin where Mick and Brenda Webb live. Mick's been very involved in our Remembrance Day programs, and he was the one that spearheaded the Jade Memorial in Kate's Park for the fallen. And so it was a lovely turnout by the Heritage Society and North Shore Preservation and lots of local residents. Mrs. Gillis actually also attended the event, and it was lovely to see her a pioneer in the community. And so I just wanted to report on that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ma?
Thank you. Now that the World Cup's over, and I just want to take this opportunity to thank our colleagues over in the city of North Vancouver for the excellent, I'm trying to think of the right word, fan fest celebration down at the soccer house at the shipyards. And thank you for the key sponsor, C-SPAN. It was a really fun event. It brought the community together, and it was good. I think we needed it. So thank you to Mayor Linda Buchanan and the rest of the city council and the staff that pulled it off. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ma. I will just say, I mean, this is our last meeting of the council before the summer break. The next meeting, well, the public hearing on September 8th would be our next public meeting with the next regular meeting of council because of the way Labor Day falls and the Union of BC Municipalities falls. It's not until September 21st. And then we are in the thick of, we will already be into the election period at that point for a middle of October election. And so the nature of the business in that last meeting will just simply be wrapping up business from that previously decided matters. But I will just say, we'll also take some time to recognize the start of the Remembrance Day ceremony, partner with the Legion through a delegation in the October meeting or the September meeting, their choice. And we will try to make sure that the community gets out and supports the election and create lots of opportunities with the local community associations for people to consider their choices for a new mayor and council who are going to have to guide this community out to 2030, which sounds like a science fiction future date, but it comes upon you fast. But at this point, we've completed the business of this evening's meeting, so I will accept adjournment. Accepted from Councillor Murray. Thank you all so much. Thank you to staff for the reports for our consideration this evening. Thank you to members of the public for participating in the meeting, and thank you, Council, for the important decisions you made tonight. Everybody, good night.